Sasha Martinengo.
Storming down the pit lane.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time. On Ballz.co.za.
It is Ballz Visual Radio Gearz with Sasha Martinengo. Thursday afternoon. I want to record this for prosperity. The 7th of June, 2012. And been waiting to speak to this guy for quite a while. Born in South Africa, races in, all over Europe at the moment. Haven't seen him since he was about 3 years old or something like that. He won't remember that, but that's okay. But it is such a pleasure to have the young, very, very talented Callan O'Keeffe on the line via Skype all the way from the UK. Callan, great to have you on Gearz. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you very, very much for having me. It's a real honor to be on Gearz.
Oh, that is just, and that accent, I tell you. How long have you been in the UK now?
It's been a bit mixed up because we've moved here twice, but it's coming up to the end of the 4th year now, so it's been quite a while. Lost the South African accent already, sadly.
But the amazing thing is you've chosen still to ride and drive as a South African, which is, it's great for us here in South Africa. What made you choose that?
I'm South African through and through. Whether I live in England, whether I live in Australia, no matter what, I'm still South African. And I'm proud of it.
What a proud guy. Callan, we'll talk, I hope you've got a bit of time there, and I'm sure you're not going out any practice today or jetting off to go and do some races this weekend.
No, just a case of revision. I've got exams next week, back to the normal world, and obviously training every day to keep fit and strong, but I've got a lot of time to talk to you guys, so there's no problem.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, because you've got to, you're racing basically on a full-time basis, and we'll get into where you are at the moment, but you also still have to do school.
Oh yeah, of course. It's a mix between life of the real world, which is school, and trying to pass like every other kid, and then trying to win on the racing track, so it makes it a bit more difficult, but as I say, if it was easy, everybody would do it, so it's a bit more fun.
Let's start. I mean, how did you get into racing? What triggered it off from you when you were a young kid? I mean, when you moved over to the UK for the first time, or were you still in South Africa? What made you decide you wanted to get into racing?
The love of it started when I was quite young. When I was 4, my dad took me to Kyalami with my other brother to see the Williams Formula 1 cars test. And they came around the mineshaft corner, and I jumped my height. And that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do. But obviously I had to put the dream on hold for a little bit, for about 8 years, and I just kept begging my parents to buy me a go-kart. And when I was 12, they eventually gave in, and you start off at the local club race and work your way up slowly, and now I'm here driving for Red Bull. It's just like a dream come true.
I mean, it's quite incredible. I mean, you've only been racing for a few years now. It's not as though you started in karts at 4 or 5 years old. I mean, you started at 12 years old, and now you're a Red Bull racing development driver. I mean, that's an extraordinary jump from go-karts to Red Bull.
Oh, it's crazy when you think about it. Most of the other kids, they start when they're 8 years old. To start a bit later and to do more than what they've done in a short period of time is just it's amazing. And obviously all the thanks goes out to all the teams that I've been with, and also my family for supporting me, and all the people that have helped me along the way, because it wouldn't be possible without them.
Well, I mean, listen, you've got a great family in your mom and dad, and also your brothers, but as we know, motorsport is not a cheap undertaking. So it's all cool, dad says, okay, here's your go-kart. He most probably thought, well, let's just keep him happy for a while. It'll wane and he'll go back to playing cricket or rugby at school. Now all of a sudden you got to sit there and say, Dad, you got to start throwing some pounds here.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in the way, obviously, I've got the support from Red Bull, but I've also got support from Tag Heuer. I've also got support from iCover and Correlation Risk Management, and they're all helping me progress along the way and have done in previous years. So, as I said, and as you said as well, it's all good and well for the little bit of time in go-karting, but motorsport is a very, very expensive sport, so I'd just like to say thanks for them, because without them, it wouldn't be possible. It's
incredible. So when you first got into a go-kart, your first time, and you decided, okay, Dad, let's go down to the local track. You're in Guildford, aren't you?
Yeah, it's the local track is about an hour and a half from where I live in Kent.
Okay, so you went to Kent, you decided there you are on your little go-kart. Did you have any idea of setups, or did you just want to start the thing, go around the track?
I didn't know what I was doing. You get in, it's just an alien world. It all feels so fast and it all comes at you so quickly. And obviously a little go-kart is so responsive that every little steering input you make makes a difference. And the first time I did it was a bit of a shock, but it was just an amazing feeling. And you know from then on that that's all you want to do, and it becomes like your drug. And you don't ever want to give it up, and there's not even any sort of thought of that ever happening, which is quite nice.
So, I mean, it's just extraordinary how that happens. So you go out there, you're going around doing a few laps. Your dad's with you. Was your mom with you in your first go-kart ride?
It was just me and my dad. We went to the local track, and then I did about 5 laps, and I just came in and I just said to my dad, "If you love me, you'll buy me the go-kart." He did.
That is great news. And then when you went home and said, "Listen, Mom, I really, really like this go-karting stuff. I'm now going to go and pursue it a little bit further." What was her reaction? I mean, a mother's always going to sit there and say, element of danger. I don't want you to do it. Or did she sit there and say, "Okay, let's give it a bash"?
I think she's always been really supportive of me, as my family have, and I'm quite lucky in that way. But I think there's always the bit of a risk element when it comes to motorsport, and I think that's always consciously in the back of everybody's mind. But at the end of the day, as long as you accept that that's part of it, then you can get on with it. And personally, even though she doesn't say it, I think she does actually enjoy it, because she's very competitive and she likes seeing me do well, so it's quite nice.
Yeah, no, I think she's definitely your biggest supporter. That's for sure.
I'm very lucky to have the parents I do so.
Yeah, which is great. It always does help. Okay, so karting, you decided that's it. We're going to go karting. Then how did you progress now into becoming competitive and going into races and finding that extra kind of your first ever sponsor? Who was your first ever sponsor that came on board?
Oh, the first sponsor was probably my dad. Was the first official sponsor. But then as it goes on slowly, you begin to pick up. And as I said, I got correlation, risk management, iCover, Tag Heuer. And then the last notable one was Red Bull.
Come on, show us your watch. You got to have a...
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
100, a very, very nice one.
Listen, I'm sure the guys, the Red Bull drivers, Sebastian and Mark, must be a little bit jealous that you got a Tag Heuer and they're not wearing... I know what they're wearing, but they're not wearing tags.
The last one... The last junior ambassador, which is the position I have at Tag, was actually Sebastian Vettel. So it's quite a nice role to follow on, and hopefully I can do the same thing that he's done. You never know.
Oh, well, we're confident that you will. So we go back to karting. You all of a sudden become very competitive. People start noticing you, and then you now you want to progress from karts. How did you go about that?
Well, the normal thing in karting is you start off at the local club race, build your way up slowly over a few years, then you go to national level, then international level. With me, it was a bit more rushed. I went one year of club level racing and then straight into international racing. And you have to be consistently at the top. And last year, I won the first 9 out of 10 international finals. Sure. And then that's when you get the call from Dr. Marco at Red Bull saying, "We want to meet with you at Silverstone." And then from there, you begin to talk, and once you get noticed, a few other teams begin to pick around as well. And then, once you've made your choice, that's it. You're signed, and you're hopefully on the road to Formula One.
Well, I mean, you talk about Dr. Marco. For those who don't know, Helmut Marko, of course, basically spearheads the whole of the Red Bull racing team under Dietrich Mateschitz and Christian Horner. I mean, that must have been kind of surreal to get a phone call and saying, "Hello, Callan, this is Dr. Marko. I'll be in Silverstone. We'd like to see you."
That's a very good impersonation, but it was a little bit surreal. Yeah, we didn't actually think it was anything serious, and then we got there, and you sit down, and he begins to start making an offer, and your jaw just drops, and you can't believe you've gone from club level racer, nobody knows who you are, to being close to being signed up by the best team in Formula One's driver development program in the space of 2 years. It's just a surreal experience, and I'll never forget that day when I went there. Still got it firmly imprinted in my mind.
Oh, man, that is just something incredibly special. Callan, stay with us. We're going to take a quick song here on Gearz. Our guest, or my guest here this afternoon, is the brilliantly talented Callan O'Keeffe, who, of course, at this stage is competing in 2012 in the Formula BMW Talent Cup. We'll find out a little bit more. We've just found out that he got the phone call, met up with Helmut Marko. From there, we're going to find out how it is all progressed to where he is today and where he's going in the future. Stay with me here on Gearz. Here the Martinengo special guest live via Skype. All the way from Guildford in the UK is, in my opinion, South Africa's brightest talent when it comes to single-seater racing. A man who, a young man who already is a Red Bull development driver. His name, Callan O'Keeffe. Callan, you told us about meeting with Dr. Marko. What process did you have to go from there you know, to become the Red Bull, one of the Red Bull development drivers? I mean, it's not as though, oh, we saw your kart, that was cool, come along. Or was it?
Yeah, it's not quite as simple as that. We got, obviously, to talk to Dr. Marko. And then from there, we had to go through a selection process at Estoril. And that was straight out of karting. We said, you know, what happens next? And we had to go to Estoril in Portugal at the end of last year to do a test in the Formula Renault 2.0, which is an incredibly fast car, and obviously.
Well, it must have been a hell of a step up from what you were driving.
Unbelievable! It's just a completely different world, and yeah, went to the test, and I wasn't actually fit enough. I got told I was, but I wasn't, and after about 5 laps, I couldn't hang on anymore. My neck started going, and just became a helpless passenger. But obviously I did something right in those 5 laps each morning. And yeah, after that I got told that I was part of the program, and just over the moon, so happy. And now going on the way.
I mean, that must be incredible. I mean, and your parents, did they expect this kind of passion and love and progression? I mean, because it's been a very, very quick progression. When Helmut Marko sits and says, okay, Callan, we need you down in Portugal. Here's your air ticket. Come along, and you come back and you say, hey, Mom, check my new Red Bull shirt.
It's like, it's a bit crazy, because although they said that, you know, they firmly believe that I could have been Formula 1 World Champion, I think when you start out, there's always a bit of doubt, and understandably, of course, because you are spending a lot of money to do it. But I think that the year before that, when I started winning everything, that was the realization that, hang on, I could actually do this, and that's when I came to the realization of it as well. Before then, it was just sort of a dream. But then I think once you come to that realization, and then it's affirmed as well by Dr. Marko calling you up, then I think, you know, it goes from being the, well, maybe it's possible, to the, you know, it's got a really good chance of doing it. So you never know for the future, but hopefully I can keep going in that path.
Yeah, well, you definitely have all of the support here from South Africa, that's for sure. So you get the Red Bull development driver gig, in a way. Do they then steer where they want you to go and race? For example, now you're in the BMW Talent Cup. Is that a Red Bull decision for you?
Yeah, it's all sort of mapped out for you on the proviso, of course, that you keep winning. That's the pretty obvious one. And yeah, it'll go. The most likely progression is you go from Formula BMW, which I'm in at the moment. You go to next year, it'll be something like Formula Renault 2.0. Then it depends. There's 2 sort of routes you could take. You could go Renault 3.5, which is basically a level down from Formula 1, or you could go into Formula 3, which is again quite similar. And then from there, it splits up as to whether you go GP2 or straight into Formula 1. I think it all depends. But at the moment, I'm still in the early stages. I'm just trying to make sure that you do everything right, you know, day by day. And yeah, then the results come and you keep moving up.
Which is incredible. We'll talk about some of the races you've already had, because you've had 2 different meets already this season in BMW Talent Cup. But tell us a normal day in the life of Callan O'Keeffe. Let's say no school. All right. Oh. So in terms of, as you say, when you went to do the first test in Estoril, you realized you weren't fit enough. How has that changed now? Your diet, your fitness regime, and what you are pushing yourself to get to?
The diet, but I've always been quite good with the diet. Like, I haven't had a fizzy drink in 3 years. I'm very firm on feeding your body with the right sort of fuels to keep you going. Because obviously I live quite a frantic day in life, and you need to keep yourself going. But after that, realizing that you weren't fit enough, you have a winter, short period of time to get everything right. And so for the last 4 to 5 months, we've just been really pushing hard with my trainer, Roger Cleary. And we've gotten the fitness level up now to a level where sort of just below a GP2 driver, if not on par with some of them. And that's just been 4.5 hours a day over the winter, just absolutely destroying yourself to make sure that when you get into the car, there's no element of, am I fit enough? You can just focus purely on the driving.
Oh, that is, I mean, yeah, it's a tremendous amount of dedication, a tremendous amount of sacrifice as well. Formula One drivers now, let's say, especially in the last 20 years or so, have become really, really top professional athletes. You know, you have one or two that have a little bit too much fun. But, I mean, you are very focused on this role that is ahead of you.
Yeah, it's I was telling my parents the other night, every thought process that goes through my mind is, will I do this? And if I do it, will it help me become Formula One world champion? At the end of the day, that's all I really want to do. And so I'm very firmly focused on what I need to do and how I need to do it. And so hopefully that's gonna keep me going and keep me going in the right direction.
So your dad will save on all of the money you'll save, which you would have needed to go out to the pub. He's now going to just have to put back into your motor racing.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great news. I was reading in one of your interviews somewhere along the line, one of your big heroes from motorsport has been Ayrton Senna.
Of course.
Okay, but you would have also been too young to really have known Senna.
Yeah.
Is it just from years of following Formula One and its history that you actually just cottoned on to saying, wow, what a talent?
Yeah, I sadly missed the Senna era. He died 2 years before I was born. But then obviously there's film footages and stuff like that. And obviously being a driver, you understand how amazing the feeling is to get to the limit of what's actually physically possible in a racing car. And the ability that Senna had to do that constantly and just switch it on is what I really admire. And when he talks about the deep levels of concentration when he got to, like at Monaco, where he was just driving through a tunnel. And as a driver, you only really dream of getting to that sort of level of concentration and being in tune with the car. And so obviously I think he's a great role model to look up to and try and get to that sort of point. Obviously just his ability was unbelievable, especially in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, an extraordinary racing driver. And speaking of Formula One, I think there were some pictures the other day. You went and met Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel. Have you had any opportunity to sit and chat with them at all?
I met Sebastian at the Autosport Awards.
Okay.
And yeah, I had a little talk with him, and you know, you say I'm part of the junior team, and obviously he went through it not so long ago, so he understands. But hopefully he's looking over his shoulder every once in a while to see where I'm going, catching up on him, hopefully.
I'm sure he is, that's for sure. Especially with the results that you bring in as well. Never mind Mark Webber losing his seat. It could be Sebastian Vettel losing his seat. I want to know, from a technical point of view, Callan, are you one of those drivers who technically really, really helps your engineers? Because, you know, there are drivers who are brilliant in that sphere of life. And there are others who just sit there and say, you know what, give me the car and I will drive around it.
In my opinion, I think there obviously is an element that you have to be able to focus solely on the driving. But one of the ways to be able to push the car to the limit is to understand how the car is built, how it responds to certain things. And so from that respect, I try to focus as much time as I can to the technical side of things and gaining an understanding of certain things with the car, because then when it comes down to that fight with somebody, the last few laps, you've pushed the car to the absolute limit. You know that little bit more and how to get that little bit more out of the machine, and hopefully that'll end up in you coming out on top in the race.
Yeah, which is, you know, of course, extremely vital. Let's move into what you're doing at present. It's the Formula BMW Talent Cup. Is it two different events you've had, Sweden and Valencia?
Yeah, we did one race in Sweden, which was quite good. I pulled it by 9 thousandths of a second.
Okay.
don't even know how you can measure that. And then in the race, I went on to win by 3.5 seconds, I think it was, before the safety car came out.
And the competition in that, I mean, you've got other Red Bull development drivers and drivers from all over the world. How is it massively competitive?
It is. It's also quite a good series in the way that all of us, it's our first year in open wheel racing.
Okay.
All the cars are the same. All the setups are the same. You switch around engineers and driver coaches. Everybody gets everybody's data. So it's very much down to the best driver wins the race. There's no technical side, well, my engine's not as good as this one. So it makes it a bit more interesting from that respect.
Listen, it is always easier when you are in the front. And you seem to be incredibly quick, never mind in the race, but also in your qualifying performances. Valencia, 3 races, and you won 2 out of the 3 years, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was. I took 3 out of 3 poles. The last one was by 1.5 seconds, which was really good. But then obviously
that is Senna-esque.
I was very pleased when I saw that. That made my day. It was a lap that was very much on the limit. If I had gone a little bit more, I probably would have ended up in the gravel. But in the races, it was quite difficult because you have quite a long straight at Valencia. Mm-hmm. Obviously, slipstreaming plays quite a big part. And so it's very important to get away on the first few laps. And sadly, in the second race, I couldn't quite do that and got overtaken in the slipstream. It's a bit like DRS now in Formula 1.
Yeah.
You go to the inside to block, but there's nothing you can do. They just come hurtling down the outside. But then you learn from that. And then for the next race, I made sure that I broke the slipstream before anybody could get past. So yeah.
Okay, and how many of these races do you have this year?
All in all, I think it's about 13 or 14 races.
Okay.
With all of it hinging on the grand final at the end of the year when we support the DTM at Oschersleben.
Oh, that'll be awesome. And in terms of circuits, are there quite a few circuits that you're going to be racing on this year that you've never seen before?
I haven't seen any of them I've been to this year, so it should be. It's a bit more interesting when you turn up and you don't really know where you're going. But then again, it helps because in future series, it's not going to be possible to do very much testing.
Yeah.
So it helps you develop and get fast on a circuit really quickly.
All right, Callan, listen, a little bit about your personal life, because we've got Diana who's just arrived in the studio and she thinks you're mighty cute. So the thing is, you're 15 years old, you've got this tremendous focus on being, a Formula 1 driver, Formula 1 champion. How are you dealing with the sort of the fame side, the adulation side? Do you have a girlfriend? Where's your priority? Does your mom give you a clip around the ear? How does it work?
Yeah, I think my parents are still keeping my feet firmly planted on the floor. So as soon as I get out of line, I get a little hit in the head. But yeah, at the moment, like I say, it's all a bit difficult. Don't have a girlfriend. I'm very much focused on the racing. You can't. It's not really a part-time thing. You have to be focused on the racing or your schoolwork at any given point. You can't have split things. So yeah, it means life is a little bit less sort of interesting for the normal person. But then again, I'm living the dream. So in that respect, it makes it a bit better.
Okay, so what did you get for your birthday? Your birthday was yesterday, wasn't it?
No, my birthday's on Saturday.
Oh, so coming up on Saturday.
Find out yet? Yeah.
Okay, so birthday's coming up on Saturday, which is terrific. And you're now going to be 16.
I can legally buy a lottery ticket.
You see, it's a good way of looking at things. One thing I want to ask you is, you're 16 years old, you're still growing. Yeah. We all know the taller you get in the world of Formula 1, the more difficult it is. Although over the last few years, the likes of Mark Webber, who's at sort of 6'1", Jensen Button round about the same height, are you concerned? Because you come from a relatively tall family.
I'm not concerned about that. There's ways of predicting how tall you're going to get. I mean, my mother's quite short as well, which hopefully I'll follow her genes. But yeah, there's certain ways that you can predict these sort of things, various body scans and stuff like that. And at the moment, my body composition is looking pretty perfect to be a Formula 1 driver, so there's no worries there. And at the end of the day, if you are a bit taller, it just means you have to work a bit harder. So I've been working hard my whole life. There's no reason why a couple of extra inches should stop me from being a Formula 1 driver.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I'm glad to hear that as well. If, for example, Callan, end of this year, Dr. Helmut Marko calls you again and says, step up, we want you Red Bull test driver for the year, which means you go to all of the tracks. Unfortunately, as we know, in testing, there's not much testing that you would actually do, but they give you a test driver role. How would that affect you in terms of your schooling, finishing off that part of your life?
I think realistically that wouldn't happen within the next sort of 2 to 3 years, because obviously they don't want to stick you in a Formula One car when you're not strong enough or you haven't finished your education. They're very, very firm on that.
Okay, that's good to hear.
If that was to happen, you know, within the next 2 to 3 years, I think that's when you realise that your life gets completely taken over by Formula One. Obviously, you'd still try to continue schooling, maybe do some part-time university courses when you get the time, but it is incredibly difficult. It is a whole year-round thing. Every single day is dedicated to Formula One. So I think the dedication side would stay the same, but you'd just be a lot more busy and traveling and more training. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, hopefully one day.
Yeah, and we will get there. I'm sure we will. Callan, listen, it's such a pleasure to speak to you. You really have a tremendous amount of fans here in South Africa, and hopefully we'll get a lot more from chatting to you here on Gearz. We're following you very, very closely, and anytime you want to chat to us, just pop us a mail, and we'll definitely have you online. We'll be following all of your races as well. And we wish you all of the tremendous success that you're continuing to do at the moment in the BMW Talent Cup. We know you're going to win that one, and we know that you're going to be South Africa's next Formula One driver and hopefully champion.
Thank you very, very much for having me, and looking forward to speaking to you guys soon. All the best.
There we go. Callan O'Keeffe. Oh, yeah, and by the way, love to your whole family.
Thanks, same to you.
Okay, there we go. Callan O'Keeffe live from Guildford. We'll have the vodcast up a little bit later on as well. Go and check him out. He's on Twitter as well, CJ O'Keeffe Racing. You can follow him. I'll tweet that all up a little bit later as well. Also, we'll have stuff on Facebook. And this is definitely South Africa's next superstar. What a pleasure to have him right here on Gearz.
Gearz on Ballz.co.za with Sasha Martinengo.
He's kept himself out of trouble.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.